Hello, and welcome to the Complete Lakers podcast. I'm Anthony Wilson, recording from Los Angeles, California. So, just about 15 minutes ago, the Lakers got finished losing to the Suns at Crypto.com Arena. The final score was 125 to 108 for Phoenix. The Lakers saw their 7-game winning streak end. It was the second night of a back-to-back, and I feel like basically about halfway through the second quarter there, the Lakers pretty much decided that they just didn't have it tonight, and just darn it, just stopped trying. Uh, it was 41-35 in the second quarter when I turned the game on, and then pretty much was all Phoenix pretty much from then on. The score at halftime was 66-52 for Phoenix. So they ended the half on a 19-4 run, and they did all of this, not all of it, but from the second quarter on, they were without Devin Booker. He only played 10 minutes and didn't play after the first quarter. They were led by Dillon Brooks, who had 33. Colin Gillespie had 28. Luka was really the only person who showed up for the Lakers. He had 38, 11, and 5. Austin had 16. LeBron had 10. So LeBron just narrowly keeps his double-digit point streak alive. Obviously, I wasn't expecting this result tonight. I don't think anybody was. LeBron set out last night, so he could be ready tonight. Barely did anything. Like I said, Luka was really the only person who played like he had any type of respect for himself. I expected the Lakers to go to 16-4 tonight, to the point that I looked up. I wanted to make sure. I knew that they started 24-3 in 2020 when they won their last title, and then next year they started 21-6. So I was basically trying to see where they were stacking up compared to those two teams, and they go out there and they lose. They'll be in Toronto on Thursday against the Raptors. The Raptors team that is much improved. They have, Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram. I always liked Scotty Barnes. Obviously, Brandon Ingram was a baby Laker who we had to move on from in order to get Anthony Davis 6 years ago. And he's always been a very good player. Scotty Barnes, like I said, I always liked him. He's really blossoming now with them, actually, becoming a winning team. They also have R.J. Barrett, who went to Duke, and quickly went to Kentucky, if I recall. So yeah, they got some guys. Like I said, Ingram and Barnes, in particular, guys that I like. And yeah, they're much improved, and they play tomorrow. I forgot who against, but yeah, that'll be a tough test for the Lakers. Hopefully, I think this Phoenix team, because I talked about them a little bit before, because they basically have Booker and then like a bunch of like role players. Basically, I mean, Mark Williams, who was almost a Laker, Gillespie. Well, I remember when Gillespie first broke in, I was like, this guy shouldn't be in the league. He's a good player. And then Dillon Brooks, who I talked about, Dillon Brooks is the type of guy who, you hate him if he's on the other team, but you love him if he's on your team. And he's the type of person who, when he was in Memphis and Houston, he sacrificed parts of his game to fit the team. And Phoenix didn't need him to score more, and he scored more. That was like 22 a game, and he had 33 tonight. But I think that's how they loyal, because you look at them on paper and you go, all they got is Booker and a bunch of dudes, basically, a bunch of guys. And then they come out there and they play hard, they play well together, they're well coached, and that's how they get you. So yeah, just one of those nights for the Lakers. It happens though in an 82 game season. It's such a long season. The Lakers have been playing well, and they were on the second night of a back-to-back after the victory last night. So What can I say? Last night was against the Pelicans. The Pelicans basically had like a, no, it was no Zion. It was basically like a college team Lakers played against last night. The Pelicans. Tonight they played against a team that, uh, once again, not that on paper you wouldn't look at them and think that they. I mean, first of all, they shouldn't have beat the Lakers on paper. Right? Lakers basically like a Lakers no show basically. And but and with Devin Booker out, I mean, look at that team. Okay, like you got it's Brooks, it's Gillespie, it's Mark Williams. I mean, I don't think the Lakers should be ashamed, but I don't know. It is what it is. It happened, So now they just have to, move on and put it behind them. They have a couple days rest, and then they'll be in Toronto, like I said, to face a Raptors team that they were 14-5, and they lost a couple in a row. Um, and we'll see what happens with them tomorrow. I forgot who they play, but yeah, um, I think it actually, if they win tomorrow night, the Raptors, uh, that gets them back, that gets them off the schneid. But if they lose three in a row, I actually think that hurts the Lakers' chances because they're really going to be looking to get back on track. So hopefully they'll win tomorrow night. So when they play, but then again, anytime any team plays the Lakers, they treat it like it's the NBA Finals. So yeah, man, the Lakers found out, and I talked about it last episode how they're good enough to play down to their opponent, and you know that that's what they did tonight, and it backfired. You know, it just came out second, like I said, it came out about halfway through the second quarter. They're just like, whatever, not tonight. So by the way, OKC would never, right? OKC would never. Although OKC did well that maybe that 20-point lead. I think that was in Portland, which is in Portland is not. Portland is kind of like this Phoenix team tonight. Um, they don't have a Booker, but Avdia is fantastic. Have Shaden Sharp, so it's kind of similar, but for the most part, OKC they go out I mean they 18-1. The only loss was against Portland. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure. I'm damn near positive they didn't lose at home to Portland. So I'm pretty sure that was in Portland, and they had like a 20-point lead and they blew that lead. But that's their only loss before this season. The intensity that they play with is just different. There's nobody else in the league like that. So yeah, man, and I had an all under slip that would have cashed me out 25 times on Prize Picks, and unfortunately, I was sold by Musa Diabite for the Hornets. He hooked me, brother. His line was 16.5. It had gotten bumped. I played the under. He got 17 points PRAs, 17 points, rebounds, and assists. And there goes, there went the neighborhood. So that sucked also. So the Lakers lost, and then also my slip chalked because of that. I flex mine, so I still get double, but still, it could have been a 25 timer. So, yeah, pretty much was, a sour night. Uh, but yeah, really not much to, you know, it just is what it is, you know. Um, it's just, it's one of those nights, you know. I guess that's it on the Lakers, I suppose. And with that being said, since they were such losers tonight, let me get to the real story in sports. Uh, Biggest story in sports for the past, what has it been, like 72 hours now? It's been Lane Kiffin. First, everybody was awaiting his decision, and then it was he finally made the decision. I think it was yesterday that he'll be leaving Ole Miss, and he's taking a job at LSU. He was actually introduced. I think it was today he was introduced. He talked about getting to the stadium or whatever, and he called Ed Orgeron on the phone, and I said, "Man, Ed, I feel like you, bro." He did his little Ed Orgeron impression. Obviously Eddie O, they coached together back in the Pete Carroll glory days at USC as assistants, and Ed later went on. Of course, was the head coach of that LSU title team in 2000 and that's 2019. Uh, you know, one of the all-time great teams in the history of college football. Um, and that's what they're trying to get back to there at LSU. Um, I asked Grok to summarize uh, the events of the past week or so, or past few days, and I'll read from that now. So after the Egg Bowl, right, which was on Friday, Coach Kiffin informed Ole Miss athletic director Keith Carter he was leaving, but demanded to coach the playoff while building his LSU staff, a non-starter as it would split loyalties and violate NCAA norms. Carter refused, prioritizing program stability. In a reported escalation, Kiffin threatened to immediately poach his entire Ole Miss staff, including key assistants like offensive coordinator Charlie Weis Jr., and even influence player transfers to LSU, potentially sabotaging the Rebels' playoff seeding and performance. This blackmail tactic, as critics called it, forced Ole Miss's hand. They elevated defensive coordinator Pete Golding, the interim and later permanent head coach on November 29th, to lock in the locker room and secure a home first-round playoff game. Kiffin skipped the team's Sunday morning meeting on November 30th at Carter's directive, later framing it as respect for the AD's call. "We went through a lot last night. At the end of the day, that's his decision, and I totally respect that. He addressed players properly beforehand, but the optics were brutal. Many felt abandoned mid-run." And it talks about how he made his posted his statement on Twitter that same day. Saying after a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. He blamed Carter for denying his playoff coaching request, saying he hoped to finish strong but was blocked, portraying himself as the victim. He called Ole Miss a special place, but touted LSU's unique opportunity. The backlash was swift and savage. Ole Miss fans, who once adored Kiffin for memes and 40-plus wins, turned venomous. Billboards mocked him as a professional liar, echoing his 2008 Raiders firing by Al Davis, and social media exploded with betrayal memes. For example, Kiffin's Photoshop fling of sinking ship. ESPN's Paul Feinbaum called it utterly destructive and typical lane, while former NFL coach Bill Cowher deemed it a disgrace to the coaching profession. Even Kirby Smart sympathized but noted, "I don't envy the position he was in," which is basically another way of sympathizing. Kiffin doubled down in interviews, insisting the delay was about family and faith, not greed. He arrives at LSU with baggage, his history of tarmac firings, USC in 2013, and messy exits, Alabama in 2016. So he fired on the tarmac from USC in 2013. At Alabama, he had taken the job at FAU, and Nick Saban felt like he was his interests were divided, so he told him to just leave. I forgot what happened at Tennessee. I was at the Raiders. That was referenced a second ago when Al Davis did that PowerPoint presentation. That's four of them right there. I forgot what happened at Tennessee. And then there's this one. So that's That's six, right? So USC, there's Alabama, there's um it's USC, Alabama, the Raiders, this one, that's four. And then Tennessee, I forgot, like I said, what happened with that one. And then left FAU to go to Ole Miss. I guess that's the only one that didn't that wasn't messy. But it says, boosters see a portal wizard who can rebuild fast. LSU. Ole Miss, meanwhile, pays Golden $4 million annually while navigating buyout drama. Kiffin's exit cost him little things to match offers. So yeah, I just have to say this, bro. I didn't think that Kiffin would. I thought the whole thing was basically Kiffin just, I thought that he was that he would. I thought that he was just like kind of dragging it out to make a drama out of it, and that he wasn't going anywhere. Obviously, I was wrong. But I just Lane Kiffin is like, I want to defend him because he's those USC teams that Pete Carroll coached were so special, and that time was so special, special time in my life just to be able to watch those teams. The aughts, man, in LA, that first decade of the 2000s was so great. The Lakers winning 5 titles between 2000 and 2010. At the Pete Carroll era at USC, you had the Angels won a World Series. It was a good time, man. And um, you know, so I'm very fond of those teams. So I'm fond of not just Pete, but Eddie O, Kiffin, Sarkisian, Norm Chow, Ken Norton Jr., all those guys, right? And so I root for Lane just like I root for Sark and all the other guys. And part of me wants to feel like Lane. He was trying to do right by the Ole Miss. He's like, well, I have to take this job at LSU, but I don't want to really leave my current team hanging. So you know I feel like that's why I want to believe that that's what he was doing, and that he wasn't going to be in there like people said in there, like you know, basically being like a double agent against Ole Miss while he tries to build his LSU staff and his LSU roster. So, but most people think that that's pretty much what he was going to be trying to do. But it's Lane Kiffin, and he's had all of these. I mean, drama just follows him everywhere he goes. You know, and now this is his. And I had said before that I said Florida needs Lane Kiffin, but that was before LSU had fired Chip Kelly. And so it turns out that he picked LSU over Florida, and I guess I can see why. LSU has been better more recently than Florida. I mean, Florida really hasn't been good since Urban Meyer was there. Not like that, not as far as championship contention. Whereas LSU just won a national championship 6 years ago. So I just look at it and think, it's on the one hand, I feel like, as I said before, at Ole Miss, bro. If you look at what he did at Ole Miss, it's incredible, right? And I'll get more into the details in a second. But it's like if you win 9 games a year at Ole Miss, you can just stay there until you're ready to leave, until you're ready to retire. And then that's the one way of looking at it. On the other hand, if he could do what he did at Ole Miss, imagine what he could do at LSU, right? There's going to be a lot more pressure at LSU because LSU, that's what they expect, right? With Ole Miss, they don't expect anything. But that's why I wanted to get to or they shouldn't. That's why I wanted to get to my main point, which is that they're so mad at Lane Kiffin for leaving, but they should be grateful. They have 4 10-win seasons in 6 years under him. Now let's look at their history, right? So before Kiffin, the greatest coach in the history of their program was John Vaught. He coached at LSU for 25 years. That was from 1947 to 1970. And then he came back for another year in 1973. So that's 25 years. So in 25 years, he had four 10 win seasons, right? Now, they didn't. Ole Miss didn't start playing an 11-game regular season schedule until 1973. So that was that one year he Vaught came back. And they played 11-game schedule regular season from 1973 to 1996. They didn't have any 10-win seasons in that period. That's 24 years, right? And then in 1997, they started playing a 12-game season, which is what they regular season, which they still play now. And so from 1997 to 2019, which was the year before Kiffin was hired there, that's what, 23 years? In 23 years, they only had two 10-win seasons, right? So what are they? They should just be happy that Lane Kiffin that he came there and allowed them to have the type of success that they pretty much they never happened before. Not there anybody nobody remembers that was like the 50s and the 60s when they won having success under John Vaught. Their most success winning those 10 games back then, 10-game seasons back then. So I just don't know what they like. Why they're so arrogant when they're such a crappy historically. They suck. That's why they call them Old Piss. The reason they call them Old Piss is like it's not just like calling like when your rivals call you a name like other teams in this like Mississippi State or other teams in the SEC make up a name to mock their rival. No, they really are a pissy program historically. And Lane Kiffin comes there and turns them out and have them looking like something. They're going to make the playoff this year under Lane Kiffin. Imagine Ole Miss in the college football playoff, and they go and they show their ass when he decides he's going to take what is, it's a better job. Only Lane Kiffin can make Ole Miss this good. So he's going up there to LSU, and he's going to try to do the same thing there that he just did for Ole Miss, and it'll be a lot easier because LSU has a much greater tradition and more resources and everything. So yeah, bro, it's just a matter of all the other places he went to, like out of all the other schools he went to other than FAE, which doesn't really count, whether it was the Raiders or the Volunteers or the Trojans, when he was the head coach, all those places have greater expectations than Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss doesn't have, obviously USC is such a premier program. Talking about the Raiders, a historically great NFL program franchise. Tennessee, they won a national championship in the 90s. They had Peyton Manning, at one point. So Ole Miss, they had Eli Manning. Well, what did they do with him? They weren't good, were they? They didn't win 10 games, did they? I don't think so. They might have won 10 games, I guess maybe in 2003, like the year they came for Eli, his last year in college. They won 10 games, I think. So good for them. But no, they're old piss. They're old piss, bro. And that's what they are. So for them to act like that, like they're like, this is the way Oklahoma acted when Lincoln Riley left for USC. This is the way that Notre Dame acted when Brian Kelly left for LSU. Because Notre Dame and Oklahoma, these are historically great premier programs of college football. So they have a right to feel like, wait a second, you don't leave us for another program. We're the top of the line. But Ole Miss, come on, man, get it together, you guys. But I just think it speaks to the way that in the South, everybody in the South is so arrogant when it comes to college football. They feel like college football is like they created it. Maybe they did. I don't know. But obviously the history of college football in the South is bigger and greater than it is anywhere else. To the point, I guess, that even Ole Miss feels like they're like, act like they're on the same level as LSU and Alabama and and Texas and those type of in those schools. You know, um, just talking about schools in the South, not necessarily. I mean now Texas is in the SEC, but not just historic historical SEC teams, but any teams in the South. But think about Georgia, historical SEC teams, Georgia, Alabama, you know, LSU, you know, um, even LSU. Really, their history of dominance only really goes back to being great. Only goes back to uh, Nick Saban. And when you talk about Alabama, you talk about Georgia. You talk about schools like that. They've earned the right to be arrogant, but not Ole Miss. You know, so yeah, I guess that's just my take on that. Um, now as far as bringing it back home, uh, USC beat UCLA 29-10 on Saturday to finish their regular season 9-3. Um, King Miller had another great game. And UNC after being down 10-7 at the half, with Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon not playing in the first half due to some type of team infraction, which I never even, I know Linker always said he was going to talk about after the game. I didn't even look to see what it was. I guess it ended up not mattering. But yeah, they took care of business against UCLA. I was kind of worried because I knew that, UCLA, they have a quarterback, and we've seen them play well, even though they're only 3-9 at the end of the day. But this is not a great USC team. And so whenever there's a rivalry game like this, you have to watch out for it. But it just sucks. I don't know why USC always, they've been a great second half team. I don't know why they can't just play well from the start. Why they have to wait until the second half. But yeah, at the end of the day, bro, like I said, last time I said, their season was so successful, they beat UCLA. And they did it. And yeah, I mean, that's good. Now we move to next season, they'll have the #1 recruiting class in the country coming in. And that's good, bro. You get 9-2. We'll see what happens in the bowl game. If they can get that 10th win, that's even better. I did want to say, because as I was watching the game in that first half, and then until USC pulled away, I was just thinking, bro, this guy Lincoln Riley really just does not get it. And it's going to sound weird now because they did win the game. But it's just, I really just, they've kind of righted the ship because, there was a time when he wasn't, when he first got here, he wasn't really recruiting California, and now Chad Bozeman came in to be the GM from Notre Dame, and, they recruit in California, get what you got to recruit, the hottest spots in the country for college football, with the most talent, of course, California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Those are the top four. So you gotta take care of home base. That's how you can't build a team. He was only recruiting the South because he's from the South. And see, that's the thing. I remember I was listening to Coach JB, Jason Brown. He said something once. He said, this was just recently, since during the Lincoln Riley era, he said at USC, he said you need a West Coast guy to coach USC. And I looked into it, and if you look at it, going back, John McKay, he played college football at Oregon. Then when his playing career was over at Oregon, he immediately became an assistant there. He was an assistant at Oregon from 1950 to 1958. Then he goes to USC as an assistant in 59, and then he becomes the head coach. He's the head coach from 1960 to 1975. So once again, somebody with a West Coast background who understands the terrain, understands how to recruit here, and understands it's just a certain feeling and a certain vibe, and it's different. Like I remember, like I mentioned how in the South, they're so arrogant when it comes to college football. I was listening to Josh Pate, I think it was. It might have been Middlecoff. I think it was Josh Pate. Not John Middlecoff. I think it was Josh Pate. And he was talking to Colin Cowherd. And he said he was saying that he remembers when USC came to he's from the South. I think he said he remembers when USC came to and whipped Auburn 30-0, and Matt Lyon's first college start. And I was thinking he didn't really understand the West Coast thing, because as a young guy, probably around that time, USC, he probably wasn't used to. He didn't know the USC of the John Robinson days, let alone the John McKay days. So when he saw that, he's thinking, well, there's no way that they have the type of culture. They can come in here and beat us, and USC beat them 30-0. And so I think that, someone like Lincoln Riley, who's from Texas, before he came to USC, he spent his whole life in the South, growing up, going to school, playing, coaching, everything. Texas to that, the Carolina school he coached at, what, North Carolina, it was a smaller school. And then he goes to Oklahoma, becomes the OC there, and then becomes the head coach. And I think that, so that's what he knows. He doesn't really understand the West Coast when it comes to football. John Robinson, he went to Sarah High School in San Mateo. I know that Tom Brady we have a Sarah High School out here in LA, in Gardena. I know Tom Brady went to Sarah, up north, in that Bay Area, type of where Brady is from, and it might have been the same one, and maybe Barry Bonds too. Don't quote me on that. And then John Robinson, he went to college at Oregon. And Pete Carroll, he's a complete West Coast guy all the way. He was born in San Francisco and went to school there. Did all of his schooling there. So, yeah, it's just different, and but yeah, hopefully he's figuring it out. But if not, that's something to consider. Is what Coach JB said, that you need a West Coast. If you look at the three USC dynasties, it's all been from guys who had a West Coast background, and that means that they get, like guys out here, we get the terrain. We remember guys like me, guys who grew up here. I could talk football, basketball even more so. But when you start talking about, out here, it's Modern Day, it's St. John Bosco, it's Loyola High School, it's Sarah. Those are the major, Long Beach Poly, historic. Long Beach Poly has had more guys in the NFL, I think, than anybody, and that's the terrain out here, And then you go and you think about, Crenshaw and Dorsey, all those schools, They put guys in the, D1, USC, UCLA, send guys to the league, and same thing in basketball. It's Fairfax, there's Westchester, Taft, Cleveland High School, Crossroads, And if you come here from another place and you don't know that, you don't know what you're doing. You need to. But if you grow up here and you're from here, you're from the West Coast, and you know how the recruiting goes, you know how that stuff goes, it gives you an advantage, I think. And if you're not from here, you don't really understand, it could be a little rough for you. Now, I was going to say one other thing about this quarterback situation, because I don't know what Jade Meyer was going to do. He didn't really, he said, I asked him, and he just said, well, I'm focused on UCLA. But I don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to go to the NFL or if he's going to come back. But I do think that Hassan Longstreet, who used his red shirt this year, the freshman, he gives USC a higher ceiling. And if you look at their schedule next year, starts with Fresno State at the Coliseum, okay. Then they're at Indiana. Indiana's undefeated right now this year, going into the Big Ten championship game, best season they've ever had. At Penn State next year, we'll see how Penn State bounces back with whoever their next coach is. At Rutgers, okay. At UCLA, okay. Maryland at home. But then there's Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back weeks at the Coliseum. I mean, come on, man. USC hasn't played Ohio State yet since they've been in the Big Ten. Then it's Washington. Then it's at Wisconsin, and they've end the season against Notre Dame. I don't know what it says to be determined about where that game is going to be. So if you're going to be facing, Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame, and Indiana, and Penn State all on the same schedule, and you're losing Mekhi Lemmon, maybe Jacoby Lane too, you need a quarterback who can do more than just what's on the play sheet. You need a quarterback who's dynamic, who can make things happen. And even though he's still young, I think he would probably give us a better chance to be competitive against such a tough schedule. So that's just my 2 cents. If hopefully if Miami decides to come back, hopefully that doesn't mean Longstreet transfers because like I said, he uses his red shirt. So if Miami comes back and plays his senior season, then when he leaves, Longstreet would just be a redshirt sophomore, and he'll be ready to he'll be ready to really rock and roll then. So yeah, I mean. I guess it's a good problem to have because either way it goes, either you're going to bring back your senior quarterback, or you're going to have this young phenom, kid come in and take over. Like I said, my opinion, yeah, of course, Miami being the senior, but I think with what the roster might look like next year, that it might be in USC's best interest to hand the reins over to the young kid, Longstreet, and see what he can do. And then if it doesn't go well, you can say, well, we had a first year quarterback playing. It gives you an excuse if they go 6-6 or something like that. All right, so before I get out of here, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Podcast Network and to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network. You can also send feedback and mailbag questions to CompleteLakersPodcast at gmail.com. I am out.